Let's welcome in Chad Millman, CCO Action Network. All of our odds provided by FanDuel. So it's a weird week. I've shifted some bets. I don't like favorites much, but I'm going to start with two because I don't like them. Monday Night Football. Everybody loves Baker Mayfield. Packers get a little extra rest, -6.5. It's a much better team. Let's not kid ourselves. The Rams aren't good. This feels like Packers by a touchdown, sharp or square.
I got to tell you, this one is really interesting. Not a ton of activity on this game in conversation from a sharp perspective. I think you're on the right side at less than a touchdown. There's too much enthusiasm from the market when you are looking at a Baker Mayfield quarterback team. This is not a guy who wins games, right? We've seen that over and over again. I think with the Packers, obviously, there's a lot of trepidation here, but like the numbers on this one, the Rams getting the majority of the tickets, and that's why you've seen it come down a little bit. The money's heading in the Packers' direction, so if you can get them at 6.5, I would take it.
Here's another one. I bet against the Jaguars earlier this year off a big win. They're a young team. They come home. They see the Cowboys in their sights off one of their best games in a decade. Dallas humiliated, but won against Houston. Cowboys are getting healthier. It's one of those middle numbers, like a 5. In that case, I just think Dallas is a significantly better team. Sharp or square, I'm taking the Cowboys.
Oh, my God. You're living in the middle of the square. Like, you don't even have any sort of room to wiggle on this one. Trevor Lawrence, past 6 weeks, top 2 quarterback in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. 10 touchdowns, 0 picks. All these early season issues he had in the red zone, throwing passes that were too flat, didn't have any touch, not building chemistry with Doug Peterson. They've been a very good team the past few weeks. We've seen that. We've seen them getting better. I'm not fazed by sort of the blowout of the Titans on the road, especially against the Cowboys pass rush. That is the strength of their defense, but it's also the strength of the Jags offensive line. They are 5th in protecting Trevor Lawrence against the pass rush in the NFL. And the other thing I'll say is that the Cowboys secondary, they are injured. And that's one of the reasons why they struggled against the Texans. So Trevor Lawrence, who's becoming a better quarterback, is going to have a good opportunity to light them up. Most professional bettors have this game power rated at 3.
All right, let's go to the underdogs. Titans getting 3 at the Chargers. Tennessee off a humiliating loss. Yes, they're banged up. But again, let's not go crazy with the Chargers. Their defense set the tone against Miami. Titans have the better defense, the better coach, the better run game consistently, can stop the run. I like Tennessee in the point, sharp or square.
Total number game, very sharp. If this gets to 2.5, you're going to see people come in on the Chargers. Right now, at 3, majority of the money coming in on the Titans. The Chargers are not a team that anybody wants to play when they're favorites. They are great as an underdog because their variance plays to wide sort of disparities in what you can expect. And they do things that allow you as a bettor on an underdog Chargers team to stay in the game. Meanwhile, as favorites, they're just not very good. The Titans, however, as underdogs with Mike Vrabel, are very good. You've got a coaching advantage with the Titans. You've got them in a spot that favors them. And then with the Chargers, you kind of don't know what you're getting yet defensively. Joey Bosa is supposed to come back, but this has been a team that has had a hard time as a defense. So it's very hard to bet on them as a favorite.
Patriots-Raiders, I like New England comfortably. I think although Belichick's former coaches do okay against him, this sort of ball control offense by New England on display against Arizona, I still think the Raiders are a team that plays really hard, but there are some holes they can't overcome. And Belichick, this is what he does. If you've got holes, he'll find them. I think it's a boring, quick game with a lot of run involved. I'm talking 80 carries. But if it's a pick 'em or close, which is where the number's at, Raiders -1, I take the Patriots to win here, sharp or square.
As square gets. The wise guys love the Raiders in this spot. The Patriots have terrible skill players on offense as it is. And now the players that they were depending on are injured. Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Devontae Parker. We don't know what we're getting in that group. The wise guys make the Raiders 2-point favorites. So when this game opened at Raiders +1.5, the wise guys started hammering it. It's why the line has moved in the direction that it has. It's a team that, as you noted, still plays hard. They are probably getting Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller back. Both of them practiced this week. They can still make the playoffs. They're in every game. The Raiders at home at basically pick a very short favorite by the time the game kicks off. That's going to be the wise guy side.
Giants getting 4.5 against the Commanders. This is a Washington team that has more talent than New York. 4.5's a ton of points. Daniel Jones playing for his career. I'm going to go with the points. Giants, division rival, sharp or square.
Interesting game. The sharp side is definitely the Giants. There's no reason the Commanders should be 4.5-point favorites. They just played 2 weeks ago. While the Commanders are on the bye, the Giants in that game, even though it was a tie game, terribly ugly game. The Giants were ahead by a touchdown for most of the second half, and they missed a game-winning field goal. So now there's automatically inflation when a team like the Giants is coming off of a blowout loss, right? So that's why the number drifted up to 4.5. Nobody saw the Commanders play terribly last week. They didn't play. Meanwhile, teams coming off a blowout the past 20 years, so the Giants in this spot, they're covering at a 55% clip. This is Washington's biggest spread of the season against a team that was beating them 2 weeks ago. It's the sharp side, but I will tell you, I've had a couple guys say to me they love the Commanders that are professional bettors. We talked about this on the Favorites pod today. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's not always a consensus. So be wary.
Bears +9, extra rest. Philadelphia coming off a dominating win. I always pull back. The world likes right now the Eagles. I think they're in a position they could rest players getting healthy. Chicago, again, people playing for their jobs, people putting stuff on tape, young offensive line. I like the Bears and the points here to keep it reasonably close, sharp or square.
Totally sharp. And remember, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. The Rams, 8.5-point underdogs against Seattle. Last week, the Broncos, 9-point underdogs. The Broncos, 9-point underdogs against the Chiefs. Similar scenario here. The Bears +9 against a high-flying Eagles team. Huge amount of money on the Bears. This is exactly the side that the professionals want to be on. A reminder, and I said this last week because it's still relevant, even more relevant. When you get teams winning at a 65% clip over the course of the year, playing against really bad teams like the Bears, and that's the delta we're talking about between the Eagles and the Bears this week, the dogs are covering at nearly 60%. So that's what happens when you get late in the year. You get inflation on these teams that are really good.
All right, we always close with a game I could be talked into. I think Buffalo and bad weather could destroy the Dolphins. What say you? Sharp or square? Tell me the side.
I agree with you. The number has moved to 7, but there's not a ton of wise guy activity on this game because people are waiting to see how bad the weather really is. And I'll be honest with you, the side they're probably going to play in this game is the over in the totals, not necessarily taking the Bills -7. I think they like the Bills because the Bills, when they do win, they tend to cover big. And I think, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, if you were going to fade any team down the stretch, it was going to be Miami, who 3 weeks ago, they had come off 6 straight really easy games at home or indoors, and they were heading into the end of the year where they were going to be on the road in really tough spots, including this game. So wise guys probably will bet the Bills -7, but they love the over in this game because the snow tends to play to the offense's strength.
Finally, a game I missed.
Colts-Vikings. How did we not talk about Colts-Vikings?
Oh, God.
Come on. Come on. This is a great bounce back spot for the Colts. When they've gotten killed this year, as they did 2 weeks ago, they've come back and won. Minnesota's defense is terrible. Forced 2 punts against the Lions. The week before, they gave up nearly 500 yards to the Jets. The Colts are actually outgaining their opponents. Minnesota is getting outgained by its opponents. In our luck rankings that we do on actionnetwork.com, which basically are the best way to measure expected regression. So a team that is playing way outside of itself and is expected to come back down to earth. A team playing a little bit below expectations should be playing better. There's the biggest delta of the week in this game. Take the Colts. Every wise guy is taking the Colts.
All right, you talked me into it.
Yeah.
By the way, great offense, Detroit. Great defense, Jets. Who would you take?
I would take the Jets here. I love the Lions. I bet big on the Lions over 6.5 before the season began in their win total. So they're at 6. I'm a huge Dan Campbell guy. I have believed, and there have been some good stories this week about Dan Campbell. I have believed he was a very smart guy who was wrapped in a very passionate body, and he gets his team to play. And you got to love this offense, but they've been in perfect spots the past few weeks. And they're now going on the road, terrible weather in New York against a really, really great defense. Jared Goff outside is not Jared Goff inside. And so much as it pains me, now that I know Mike White is playing, I got to take the Jets.
All right, buddy. Good stuff. Appreciate it.
I'm here for you. See you later.
Thanks, man.